all of the articles, anything that I have to share on the YouTube channel. So if you're listening on YouTube, then by all means, please just click on the links. There are so many of them. I'll talk about them a little bit as we move along. All right. So I'm going to keep this ugly picture up here because I really don't know any other way to do it. And I want to make sure that I catch Mr. Fitzgerald as soon as he comes in the room. So we're just going to keep it like this for a minute as I continue to just introduce myself. I am Twana. I'm known as Twana's Twitch in these Twitch streets. And the Inequality podcast is that space between inequality where we aim to be that space. And our mission is to provide that space to learn, grow, shift our perspectives, change ideas, exchange ideas, learn from one another, and challenge social norms in a positive way. We will always work to move from just having the conversation to effective action. Because I feel like we've had the conversations long enough. We know what the issues are. It is just time for us to move past that to action, right? We want to disrupt the complacency that we have towards inequality here in the richest country in the world. Every subject will be approached with an open mind and the chance to see things in a different light and hopefully do the same for the audience. As you know, I have all kinds of guests on here. My favorite part is when I just have conversations with a friend and we just talk about recent events as they pertain to inequality. So, we really like to have diverse opinions, and I want you to be comfortable to state those opinions in the chat, converse amongst each other, keep your mind open because we want to advocate for people, right? And we want to make sure that we are encouraging people to remove the blinders and see other people, recognize that everyone wants and deserves the same things in life. And that includes living in neighborhoods that are safe and free of crime, thriving and not just surviving. So, as I mentioned, our special guest today is Larry Fitzgerald Sr. You might know him because his son is pretty famous, but I will say that Larry Fitzgerald is no slouch himself. So we're going to talk about the new name, image, and likeness rules for college athletes today. This is an important conversation to have because many of us have children, nieces and nephews who aspire to be a professional athlete, and you got to go through college, right? Or we know someone who has kids in college now playing sports on scholarships that will never make it to the professional level. So their degree will be their reward, but now they have the opportunity to make money while they're in college and not working somewhere on campus for next to nothing, right? Which is kind of how it works. All right. Do, do, do. All right, let me find. Now I have to find his bio because this is another thing that I'll be able to read while we're waiting on him. Because, like I said, he may have a famous son, but Mr. Fitzgerald has done plenty on his own. So let me just stop a minute before I get into reading. I want to make sure that I am addressing the people in the room today because I just appreciate y'all so much for coming in. All right. And yes, thank you, Sweet Jamaica. Please host and share. I really appreciate it. Big Stove, thank you for coming and lurking. Please drive safely. You know, we want you to get to where you're going in one piece for sure. And Light Eyes, hey, how you doing? I am so excited about your stream. I had such a good time listening to the conversation today. I'm sorry I didn't end early enough to have you come and join us and your audience, but maybe we can figure it out next time. Jazzy Mimi's in the house. Thank you very much. Samas, thank you so much. Oh my goodness, another OMU family member. I am an only child, and so I appreciate all the new family that I got while I was there at the OMU meetup. And sitting by patiently waiting for the next for the next one to come up. I need to pull this up on another screen so I can see what's going on. I don't even know if that's possible. I'm not even going to try today. Let me just again peek and see if he's made it. Nope, not yet. All right, so let's go ahead and just talk a little bit more about him. He's just going to miss all the accolades that I'm giving him right now, which, is fine. We're going to get him on shortly. Hold on. Let me see if I can send him a quick text. Don't miss you. Put my name on here. All right. So now let's just talk about Mr. Fitzgerald here for a minute. He is a giant in his industry, and he's a giant of the Twin Cities sports media. He's in newspaper, internet, radio, television. For 40 years, he has brought his unique perspective and social consciousness to the world of sports as a writer, producer, talk show host, and commentator. Larry has been the sports editor and columnist with the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder, one of the Midwest's strongest and oldest African American news journals for 35 years. Fitzgerald first graced the airwaves in Minnesota in 1978 on KMOJ FM 89.9, the Twin Cities' premier African-American community-based radio station, which happens to be how him and I met. I was a DJ on KMOJ radio back in the day before I became a firefighter for the wonderful city of Minneapolis. So that's actually how me and Mr. Fitz met. So we've known each other for many, many, many years. His broadcasting credits have gone through several incarnations up and down the dial with shows such as Higher Ground, Sports Beat, Inside the NFL, and the popular Monday Night Football show. Fitzgerald was the first in Minnesota to weekly feature Minnesota Vikings star players on radio an hour before the game, before a live audience at Champion Sports Bar, Champ Sports Cafe, and America's original bar at the Mall of America. Y'all know what the Mall of America is, right? It used to be the largest mall in America. I'm not sure anymore. I'm sure they probably built some bigger ones since then. He is the only reporter to ever get rookie sensation Randy Moss in 1998 to do a live on location interview. All right, I'm gonna pull out again real quick. I just got to see if he's here. Don't want to keep him waiting too long. There he is.
Yeah, how are you?
Mr. Fitzgerald, how are you doing today?
I'm pretty good. It's 94 in Minneapolis. I know you're used to the heat out there in Arizona, and I am too. That's why I'm never there between May and September because it's just too hot. But it is a hot one here in Minneapolis, 94, and I just finished playing in the 80th Bronze Golf Tournament here at Hiawatha Golf Course, and you used to live here, and so you know the history and what this community is fighting to try and save the only golf course that's actually in the city limits, technically, Hiawatha, and keep it because they've actually named the clubhouse after Saul Hughes, who was a black amateur player years ago. Who they didn't allow him to come in the clubhouse. I mean, when he played the course, they wouldn't let him come in the clubhouse. So eventually, they turned around and named it after him. And so it's that type of fight here. George Floyd was murdered here by 4 police officers, and I've made this city my home for since 1978, and I really love this city, this community, and but sometimes you got to straighten people out, and that's kind of what the challenge is being in the media business.
Absolutely. I really miss it there and so excited that you're trying to save the golf course there in Hiawatha. I wish I was there. I'm not a big golfer, but I do know how to golf. My aim is always just to not end up in the water or in the sand traps. As long as I do that, I'm all good.
Well, Tony Finau was here last week, and what a great player he is, and a better person. He's got a big family, 5 children, and he rallied to win the 3M Open out at the TPC in Blaine, and I hear he's near the lead in Detroit. He's playing in the Rocket Mortgage, so he's trying to go back to back.
Absolutely. Well, as you were logging in, I was just reading to the audience your bio, which, is so extensive. So, if you don't mind, sir, I'm just going to get back to that and then I will turn my attention back to you. Is that okay?
No problem. No problem.
All right. So let me go ahead and finish. Where was I? Okay, so his current column titled Fitz Beat is featured in the Minnesota Sport in the Spokesman Recorder and at LarryFitzgerald.com. Sports Beat, which he has hosted from 1985 to 91, was his daily sports radio magazine show, which he cultivated to success and eventually syndicated, selling the program rights to ESPN, the world sports leader, which is something that I just learned as I've been getting ready to meet Mr. Fitzgerald myself. So, Mr. Fitzgerald has worked with Voyager Broadcasting, AM 630, 1030 AM WGY, KMAP, AM 1370. He's lent his talent for exceptional sports reporting to such entities as Almanac, an Emmy Award winning TV news magazine show for 15 years, which is just awesome. Let's see. What else do I have here? Fitzgerald co-founded the National Programming Network with Reggie Flake and Mike Croak. At NPN, Fitzgerald collaborated with former Minnesota Vikings coach Dennis Green. Fitzgerald was named managing general partner in signing Green to a contract that lasted 8 years. He then hosted and produced his weekly call-in show, Vikings Beat, on KMOJ 89.9 FM Mondays in drive time, and on Thursdays with Dennis Green radio show. These are all things that I'm just learning about him, even though I feel like he's just, my brethren, but I've learned so much just getting ready. Let me just give a little bit of background about where you're from real quick. Fitzgerald was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. His parents were Robert and Sally Fitzgerald. He graduated from Finger High School, where he was a two-time All-American defensive tackle for Frank Esposito. Fitzgerald was a 4-year starter and led Finger to the public league championship game 3 times. Your illustrious career started after attending Indiana State University in Terre Haute, Indiana, where he played offensive tackle on scholarship for Tom Hart from 75 to 77. He majored in radio, TV communications after transferring from Indian Hills Community College in Centerville, Iowa. Fitzgerald transferred to Indian Hills in 1972 after leaving Prairie View College just outside of Houston, Texas. Fitzgerald attributes much of his professional success and inspiration to his late wife, Carol, who's a beautiful woman, his wife of 24 years. They met at Finger High School. Carol died of breast cancer on April 10th, 2003. They are proud parents of Larry Jr. and Marcus. Now, Mr. Fitz, I don't know if you know this, but your son Marcus hangs out with my ex-husband quite a bit. And I don't know if you know my ex-husband, Andre Jenkins, who's like the master loctician out there.
Wow.
Yeah, that's my ex-husband, the
Is that right?
Minnesota Small.
Did not know that. I'll have to talk with Marcus about that.
Yeah, they go fishing together from time to time, but all right, let me see. I'm gonna get this off the screen here. Let's just get our wonderful faces here together.
There you go.
All right, let's try this one. No, let's get the other one so we can see each other really well. All right, so what I want to start with you with is some pictures. Let's talk about your career for a little while. Are you okay with talking about yourself?
Well, thank you. You know what? I'll do it. I'll follow your lead.
All right, awesome. So I found some pictures on your website, right? And so I just want you to talk a little bit about these as I scroll through. One of my favorite, Denny Green, so respected in Minneapolis. Tell us about this picture with you, Denny, and Tiger.
You know what? That was at the Mall of America, and it actually was in the year 1999. Tiger at that time had won only one major, and I told you I just played in the bronze here today. Tiger and his dad came to Hiawatha in Minneapolis on 46th and Longfellow, and you know exactly where that is, right between Lake Hiawatha and Lake Nokomis, just off Highway 77 here. And he held the Tiger Woods Foundation camp, and it was the second one that he had ever done. And he did it right here in Hiawatha, and it was a tremendous opportunity for those of us who were just getting behind this phenomenal player, this golfer, this man who just blew away the Masters in 1997. But he was changing his swing, and he came here, and of course got some momentum. And I remember pulling on my two sons, Marcus and Larry, and telling them, "You have to follow him. You have to watch him." And listen to everything he says because you're going to learn so much from him because this guy might be the greatest golfer in American history. Now, technically, Jack Nicklaus has won 18 majors, and Tiger's won 15. But Tiger's a billionaire, and he's won 82 professional tournaments. He's tied with Sam Snead for the most in history. But it meant so much to be around him for 3 days here in Minneapolis. And at that time, he really helped Marcus and Larry understand and formulate in their mind that that's a game that they can play, and it's a game that you can play until you get even older, like myself. And so I'll never forget it because when Tiger left here, he went to Chicago and won his second major and the last major of the 21st century. Um, and so he had his Masters and the PGA Championship, and so that was it was great to know that Minneapolis kind of gave him a boost. And as you know, from that point, winning two majors, he's gone on to win 15. But that was tremendous. It was back in 1999, and I'll never forget it because when you're watching somebody ascend to be the greatest, it just means so much because you saw the potential, and then you're able to watch as he went along. And of course, he's the only golfer in history to win the Masters, the U.S. Open, the PGA, and the Open Championship, and hold them all in succession, back to back to back to back. And so I love the game of golf. I'm very competitive myself in trying to recognize my limitations. But sometimes when you swing and you hit a good shot, you say, wow, I'm Tiger.
Well, I can't wait to experience that myself because I have not. I'm just, like I said, always excited when I just don't get in the water or the sand.
Right.
All right, so now I have a picture of you and Mr. Mike Wilbon, who I have to say is one of my all-time favorites. And I picked this one because he is a Chicago guy and he's an Arizona guy, kind of does both like you do.
Yeah.
So I wonder if you can tell me just a little bit about this picture.
Well, Mike and I, pardon the interruption. He's a longtime friend. Obviously, attended Northwestern, worked and started writing with the Washington Post, and so over all these years and covering championships, I've covered 41 Super Bowls, and so I've always developed relationships with people like yourself and other media that see you working and they want to know about the city you're covering from and that type of thing. And so that's how Mike and I became really good friends back in the day. And of course, he left the Washington Post and went to work with ESPN. And the show that he does uh, with Tony is just a remarkable show. I just love the interaction and the entertainment value of it. And that's why he and I have just really taken on many obstacles that we've run across. And so I really admire him. One, as a professional. Two, he's from Chicago, where obviously my roots are. And I just admire individuals who set out on a path and continue on that path, believing in what it is that they're doing, and they're not denied. And Michael Wilbon is one of those great people, and just a good friend also.
Yeah, I love I love him too. It's always nice to see him step out of Pardon the Interruption and do basketball. I just love that. Pardon the Interruption is probably the only show on ESPN I watch these days because I just have a problem with how they treat women's sports, which is a whole nother conversation. Right.
Watching
All
some,
right. So,
I've been reading some of your tweets, and you're right. For them to have a contract, ESPN, where they are basically the major vehicle in television for the WNBA, but I would like them to utilize NBA TV and start fueling it with more games. The second game, run it over again. Because sometimes you miss it, but everybody knows that whenever ESPN televises something, they're going to put it back on again. If they televise it at 8 Central, they're going to run it again at midnight. So they should take on that same philosophy with the WNBA. And I'm glad to hear that the WNBA has just reached an agreement that they're going to extend the season to 4 games, four more next year. They're going to play a 40-game schedule as opposed to 36. And I think that's a good thing because people need to see more of these great.
oh, you were frozen. I was waiting for you to unfreeze. I didn't want to interrupt your conversation. So I've just been kind of strolling through the pictures that I have. We don't have to talk about any of all of them, but one of my favorites again is the one that you took with Kobe Bryant. And I'm not sure how long ago you took this picture, but it took me a long while to become a fan of Kobe Bryant. I feel like at the end of his career, he seems so much more approachable and willing to share his knowledge and kind of, took the young people under their wings. And then, of course, his commitment to women's basketball and women's sports, of course, touched my heart. So tell us a little bit about that picture.
Well, again, covering games, championships, all-star games, doing what I do. I've taken great pride in the fact that I probably cover more major championships than probably anybody else in the business who technically is an independent. And I'm very proud of that because you being here in Minneapolis, our sports teams don't win the championship as every year. The Twins won it in '91 and '87 when Kirby Puckett led the way. Another Chicago guy, and I had a great relationship with him, and he's on that stroll of many pictures over the years, and so that's been one of those where I met Kobe and covered his championship run. He had 5 times that he won it all, and he went through some controversy during his career, where many in the media came down on him, many of the public because of the situation that happened up in Colorado. But you know what? He came back from it. And he was able to change as a person and become revered. And I just admire a person who recognizes when they make a mistake and are able to man up to it, so to speak, and move on and move forward. And I think that's one of the reasons why I admire him so much to this day. I was tight with Michael Jordan as well back in the day. Juanita, his wife, actually went to the same high school with me at Finger, and so Mike and I really became close, and uh, and that's kind of the way it happened with Kobe. And when you get to interview people and they talk to you, they get to feel you out. They get to understand from the way you bring a question to them, whether you know what it is you're talking about. And that's kind of how I have developed great relationships with many of those guys that you see and women on my website that admired me as an individual. And some of this was long before we ever heard about Larry Fitzgerald Jr. And so that's why I'm very proud of what I've done. My body of work.
Oh no, we lost him. We lost him. We lost him. Let me see. Let me see if we can get him back. And it's so funny because that is exactly as he described, that's exactly why I like Kobe Bryant so much because of the adversity that he had in the beginning of his career, because I followed basketball really, really closely back in those days. And so Kobe Bryant was, this young kid, got married early, comes from like basketball family because his dad played. And so Kobe Bryant, to me, when he was coming out, I appreciated him even more than I appreciated LeBron James, to be honest with you. But once he did kind of have those hiccups in the beginning of his career, I think that I kind of lost um, a little respect for him, but he did gain it back with me. So that's how I feel about Kobe Bryant as well. And while we're waiting on Mr. Fitz to join us back, let's just go through these pictures real quick because I want you to see them all. For some reason, of course, this is starting over every time I turn it off, but I want to show you, in case you didn't know, Larry Fitzgerald Sr. is the dad of Larry Fitzgerald Jr., who is a really, really good wide receiver, in case you didn't know about him. And there he is with Larry Jr. and with Tiger Woods. And this is him receiving an award that I think we're going to talk about a little bit as soon as we are able to get him back on the stream. So again, welcome in, you guys. My name is Twana, also known as Twana's Twitch. And we are talking today about on the backs of amateurs. We are going to dive into the new rules that the NCAA has to they must abide by. Now athletes are able to make money off of their own image and likeness now. And I think it was a long time coming. If you have paid attention to college sports at all, you know how controversial this conversation is. And I think it's a very important conversation to have. And welcome back, Mr. Fitzgerald.
Sorry about that. You know what happened? My iPhone got hot. Apparently, I told you 94 degrees here, and apparently I got it exposed and it got too hot. But
Oh,
fortunately,
turn that AC on out there.
there you go.
Of course, we have to keep our AC on out here. I've been paying attention to what everyone's been saying about the weather this year, and I'm like, I have no sympathy for you. I live that summer every year out here in Phoenix, but except for this year, it's more humid than I feel like it's ever been. Have you been back here yet in the summer?
Oh, not this summer. I have not. But this year the Vikings play the Cardinals, but instead of them playing out in Arizona, they're going to be playing here. So I'm looking forward to that matchup. It's so different. Obviously, with Larry not playing anymore, and for the last 17 years, I never missed a Cardinal game that Larry played in. But I'm looking forward to looking at the Cardinals this year. My son had his fundraiser earlier this year at Dominique Steakhouse in Arizona. That was the last time I was in town. And Larry, in thanking everybody for contributing to the Fitzgerald Foundation, said that he believes that the Cardinals can do the same thing that the Rams and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did, host the Super Bowl and play in it and win it. And he said that if the Cardinals get there, that he would come back and sign a contract to play in the Super Bowl. So I want to see if he holds up to that, and particularly if the Cardinals can find a way to be that type of football team.
Oh man, please make that happen. Cause I saw the little exchange you had on Twitter with one of the fans out here that was expressing their disappointment that Larry just kind of kept, left the fans high and dry. You had a little snarky comment, and your son came in and was like, hold up, dad, like hang on. That's not how we treat my fans.
Yeah,
And so if that were to happen, because I am a volunteer for the Super Bowl this year. Thank you very much. I did manage to get signed up finally.
congratulations.
But if that were to happen, that would be his opportunity to give the fans their goodbye that many of them think they deserve.
That is true, and uh, you know what I think I objected to something that, and we all read and interpret different things, and I think he criticized Larry saying he left the Cardinals high and dry, and I said high and dry. He played 17 years. I mean, Tom Brady's still playing. He's 45 years old, but I mean, he's played over 20 years. I say everybody doesn't play 20 years. Not being a wide receiver in the National Football League, but Larry was when Larry was ready to go. He left. But sometimes people, when they retire or stop playing, they go off with a parade or whatever the case may be. They go on a city tour. Every city they go to, somebody gives them a gift. That's not what Larry wanted to do. When he decided that he didn't want to play anymore, he just left. And I think, uh, and I'm grateful that many Cardinal fans and NFL fans just wanted that one more opportunity to say thank you, and I can understand that.
Absolutely. Of course they do. I'm a fan. I'm a fan too. So I can't say that I was a little disappointed by that decision. But I feel like, even though I don't know your son very well, I feel like because I know you, I have a different attitude about his decision. And so I respect it because I do feel like, I watched him grow up because, being a retired Minneapolis firefighter, there are many Sundays I was on the sideline, you know, as that person who was there in case anything happened. So I remember watching him grow up. I remember when his dreads were this long, his locks were only that long. So, I appreciated everything that he gave to the Cardinals organization. I appreciated that he didn't leave, like a lot of people tried to say that he should have to chase that ring. I loved that he was dedicated to us, and I feel like that should be enough, right? But anyways, let's move on to the topic. Are you ready to dive in?
I am. I am.
All right. So let's just start because for me, this conversation on the backs of amateurs, as we um, start to get into the topic, this all became interesting to me during COVID, right? When all of a sudden, after the colleges and universities had to shut down, the only thing I remember from that time is them saying, we've got to get basketball back. We've got to get football back. There's no way we're going to survive if we don't have these sports come back. And we will shut down the entire campus and just have these guys on campus. But we really, really need to have these sports. And to me, I was like, wait a minute. So, of all the sports, these two are the most important ones. They're also the blackest of the sports, right? There's definitely more color in those two sports than anything else. What did you think about all of that as it was happening?
Well, it was a very strange time in America. First of all, dealing with something un, unbelievable. I mean, I've always believed in being prepared for the unexpected, but to deal with COVID, and I remember I covered the All Star game in Chicago, my hometown, at United Center, and that was a All Star game which they honored. You just mentioned him, Kobe Bryant, and I just really enjoyed it. And there were 24,000 people there, and so we fly back to Chicago from Chicago to Minneapolis, and literally within about 10 days, this thing called COVID popped up. And of course, you know what happened with Rudy Gobert and that type of thing. He tested positive, and before you know it, the entire sports world shut down. And it was an unbelievable time. We've been doing podcasts and we've been doing Zoom rooms and I still, even to this day, if you haven't been vaccinated, if you haven't had booster shots, we in the media, we they don't allow us into the locker rooms, and they do now because I've gone through that. But it's just been a real different time in America, adjusting to one, trying to protect yourself, trying to protect your family, trying to protect your friends, and then of course trying to get back to some sense of normalcy and it was a long time being down, but slowly we've come back, and we're not all the way back, but we're very, very close. And I think that a number of things have changed. Since then, as you know, all of a sudden we've got NILs, and for a long, long time, I have been an advocate that athletes, and I was an athlete myself, growing up in Chicago. I had a scholarship. I ran into Proposition 42, and it cost me an opportunity to go to Notre Dame. I wound up having to go to Prairie View in Texas, and was there for a short time, and then transferred to Indian Hills in Centerville, Iowa, where I played for uh, a year and a half, and then transferred to Indiana State, where I was the most famous Larry until Larry Bird got there. So it was that type of thing that you had to learn and adjust to. But I've always believed that the scholarship, although very important, was not enough. That these were two separate jobs. A student athlete is a student first, and making certain that you take care of that job that you have, and that is performing, starting, leading, winning, to make money for the university that you're at. And so that's where we're at now in this year of 2022, 1 year coming out of NILs, where many athletes across America have pushed the barometer and the meter, where they have generated $917 million, and we know there are 300 plus universities across America, and so not every athlete is going to get an NIL. In fact, only 20% of the athletes that wind up going to college, either on a scholarship or walk on or whatever the case may be, wind up getting an NIL. And so here we are now in this world where these coaches have been making fortunes, 10 and 5 and $8 million a year to coach for the various universities across America. And now they're questioning, the way the business is working, and that the athletes now, they have to basically get into a competition to get the best athletes, and they don't have the leverage that they used to have, just because your name is Nick Saban or whatever the case may be, and you've won many championships at Alabama. Athletes now are putting themselves first, and they're making choices that they think are best for them, and it's created a controversy. It's created a fight, and a number of the coaches today don't like this new NIL system, but hey, we're going to have to live with it, because that's the system that won in the courts, and I believe that that's the way you should go. I don't agree with what happened with Roe versus Wade, but you know what? When you get the votes on the Supreme Court, and you're able to, get that case in front of you, and you make the determination that, okay, we're going to wipe this out for this reason, and you got the votes to do it, it can change the way things are in America.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I've been noticing, not just in the attitudes of our coaches and universities. And then real quick, I'm just going to put this back on the screen for everybody. I just want you to see who the top college earners are, the top earning sports programs across the country, and they're making a lot of money. And for years and years and years and years, they've made a lot of money. And so I'm sure that it's hard for them to let that go. And then one of the conversations that I keep hearing is that, well, what if we just decide that we're going to have a system where we pay these athletes? So it's like the argument isn't they should be able to earn off of their own image and likeness. The argument is, well, what can we do on our end to change that? And then all of a sudden the colleges are like, well, let's just figure out how much we should pay them, like a stipend for whatever. And so I'm like, nah, we're going to keep it the way it is, because for so many years, they've been able to exploit our student athletes in college. And I think it's time. It's time to stop.
I agree. You know what? I'm glad that it happened. I believe that those young people who are coming out of high school and going into college, and they're able to utilize not just their athletic abilities, but their mental approach, and also their social approach, because many athletes benefit because they've got large followings on on Twitter or on Facebook, or you name it, some different platform, and that enhances their ability to be able to get uh, a better deal. And a number of athletes have been able to benefit with it. And so your popularity, your success can add to your value to that university, and obviously to your own personal gain. Now, as we know, the transfer portal is also in the middle of this, because of the fact that, as you mentioned earlier, with coming out of the COVID period, basically any athlete that was in college basically got a year that basically was frozen. And so they were able to come back when we got back to some sense of normalcy, and keep their scholarship. And so, as you know, the world doesn't stop, even though many of us had to stop during that time. So that meant that some of the athletes that had scholarships, the coaches, the universities, they had to make decisions based on who was transferring in, who was getting in the portal and wanted to go. You know, it's created, a different dynamic in sports, particularly in college athletics. And so we're still working our way through it. And that's one of the reasons why it's been so controversial, particularly this year, with the Big Ten, now 16 teams starting in 23, 24. Well, imagine that UCLA and USC going to be joining the Big Ten, and I think Oklahoma, and I forget the other school that's going to be moving into the SEC. So it's created a new frontier, you might say, in sports.
Absolutely, because, it seems to just be about the money and not about the education. I want to just back up real quick and give a little history lesson to the audience. So bear with me here, Mr. Fitzgerald. I have an article called "The History Behind the Debate Over Paying NCAA Athletes" that was published April 23rd, 2018. So this is an old piece
Okay.
written by John Solomon, but it was a very interesting look into how student athlete even came about. It's a term that's rooted in legal calculations. The first executive director of the NCAA created student athlete in the 50s to help the NCAA fight against workmen's compensation insurance claims for injured football players. So if you didn't know how that all began, that's what happened in the 50s. Players were starting to understand that they deserved some kind of at least workman's comp if they were to get hurt while they were playing their sport. Student athletes first surfaced when the widow of Ray Dennison, who died from a head injury in 1955 while playing in Colorado for the Fort Lewis A&M Aggies, filed for workmen's compensation death benefits. The Colorado Supreme Court agreed with the defendant that his widow was not eligible for benefits because the college was not in the football business. So the term student athlete was deliberately ambiguous, right? There was a Pulitzer Prize award-winning author, Taylor Branch. He wrote in The Atlantic in 2011, college players were not students at play, nor were they just athletes in college. That they were high-performance athletes meant they could be forgiven for not meeting the academic standards of their peers. That they were students mean that they did not have to be compensated ever for anything more than the cost of their studies. Student athlete became the NCAA's signature term, repeated constantly in and out of the courtroom. So this came out of a legal argument for workmen's compensation when they decided to start naming them student athletes, so that all they had to do was pay them for being a student. So the student athlete defense helped the NCAA win and avoid lots of liability cases. And the most notable win was the lawsuit brought by former Texas Christian University running back Kent Waldrop, which I'm sure you know this story, who was paralyzed in a 1974 football game against the University of Alabama. TCU stopped paying his medical bills after 9 months, and the Waldrop family coped for years on charity. So soon after Division I schools started carrying catastrophic insurance for football players in 91, then Waldrop family sued. He claimed he was an employee of TCU at the time of the injury and covered by workers' comp laws. But even though he initially won his suit, the Texas Supreme Court ruled that he was not an employee because he and TCU intended for him to participate in sports as a student. As part of its decision, the Texas Supreme Court wrote that a basic purpose of the NCAA was to make the student athlete an integral part of the student body, and cited the definition of an amateur student athlete from the NCAA bylaws. So again, this is how this all began, just out of lawsuits for players who were injured while they were playing. But we have to keep in mind that the money kept growing in college sports, right? So the combined revenue in 2015 had increased by 266%, right? Between 2005 and 2015. So much money pouring in, but they still wanted to make sure that student athletes stayed in their place, which is how, I'm deeming it. And then I just want to say one more thing before I get back to you, Mr. Fitzgerald. Let me see if I can find. Ooh. All right. So this is what I want to just point out as we continue to look at this story. If we think about 1950, these are pictures of the football team in 1948 and the basketball team in 1948. So these are the people who were suing the NCAA for workers' comp injuries, right? 1950. Then we move on to 1960, which was after the 1955 case that I talked about. Even in 1960, you can see that sports was still, at least basketball and football, was still predominantly white. And then if we move on to 1974, right, we see that there's some color getting in to the sports, right? And then we move on to today. This is Hawaii, the team in Hawaii. This is Oregon State, right? Here we have the NCAA champions from this year. So the look of everyone really changed, right? After they decided that workers' comp was not an option.
Wow, that is amazing. Well, I'm sure that there are a number of athletes that, and many get hurt, and many aren't able to finish, their careers athletically, playing in college. That they really have to look at that, and there are always circumstances in each case that are different. That one you can take to court and certainly win, and then, but you don't know if you don't bring it to an attorney who believes that he can win that case for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But while I was, I really like to do a lot of research because you are the subject, you're the expert in the subject. So you can like roll stuff off of your head really easy. But I like to really dig in and be able to speak intelligently about these things with you and the people that I bring on. So we've had the NIL in place now for over a year. July 1st, as a matter of fact, 2021 or 2022 was the 1 year anniversary. So how are things looking now that we're in the age of NIL?
Well, I think where we at today, you have to see them continuing to escalate. And I have a friend used to work for the Minnesota Vikings for what, almost 30 years. You might remember the name Jeff Robinson. He has a son who's now a sophomore at the University of Arizona, and so he's going through this new frontier, so to speak, of NILs and transfer portals and that type of thing, and coming out of COVID. And so as I mentioned earlier, only 20% right now of every school in America, over 300 Division I universities, are getting NILs in terms of the athletes, the student athletes. Only 20%. And last year's number reached, nearly $1 billion, $917 million, and so that's a lot of money. But still, 20% is a long way to go when you consider how many athletes are participating in football and basketball, and you look at all the other sports. And the one thing about the NILs that's different from the standpoint, there are a lot of sports that universities have under their under their jurisdiction, but they are technically evaluated as non-revenue sports. So, but that doesn't stop an athlete who is participating in those sports from being eligible to go out there and find a way to get an NIL and benefit, even though they're in a non-so-called revenue sport. But football, basketball, baseball, hockey, women's basketball. Right now, they're the leaders in regard to the NILs, hockey programs, particularly some in the Big Ten and some in the NCAC conferences. That they're getting a lot, but I think that number is going to continue. It's right now 20%. You just touched on it. It's only been 1 year. We're still in July, but I think that number is going to continue to go up to 25, 30, 35%. But I tell you, if you listen to some of the responses from some of the coaches during the Big Ten football meetings last week, and also the SEC, uh, the Big 12, you know, the consensus is that there's a fight right now. And the fight is between the coaches not trusting basically each other, thinking that, the game has changed in front of us. And so there's no commissioner that sits over the NCAA, that type of thing, and says, you can do this and you can't do this. And I really believe that the university should not be in a position where they are spoon feeding these NILs to the players. There's got to be some representation, I think, for the athletes uh, from an independent standpoint where they're able to go out, solicit sponsors, ownership, and businesses to take on that challenge of working through the athlete as a part of that university's program.
Absolutely, because I learned that the universities still have a big hand into who our student athletes can even offer their name, image, and likeness to. There is a no competition clause or something out there saying, well, you can't do this advertiser and you can't do this because these are the people that we are committed to advertising with. So the fact that they still have their hands in it
Yeah,
is just amazing to me. But I think that definitely needs to change. But I don't know that it will, because I feel like they give us a little bone, and then they kind of pull it back, and we're always steady chasing that bone, right?
I agree. You know what? I've seen some information on some things I've been learning through Butch Carter, who's a good longtime friend. He formerly coached in the NBA, was NBA Coach of the Year with the Toronto Raptors back in the day. He had Tracy McGrady and that type of thing. And he's the older brother of the great legendary Hall of Famer Chris Carter, who played here for the Minnesota Vikings. And so Butch Carter lives in Toronto. He's a part of the Raptors broadcast and that type of thing. And he has initiated a program that sort of can be an asset to many of the athletes across America in getting into and understanding how the NIL game sort of works. And so I'll forward it to you so that you can do a little homework on it and maybe get Butch on so he can talk about how he thinks that this program that he has can be a benefit in helping as we go to the next stage with the NILs as it continues to grow into year number two.
And that's, this being the inequality podcast where we aim to be that space between inequality. The reason why this topic of conversation is dear to my heart is, again, because the sports that make the money for the colleges and universities are predominantly Black sports. And I feel, and this is my personal opinion, I feel that they go after these young brothers who come from nothing, right, or at least close to nothing. We won't lump them all in the same category, but our brothers are coming from nothing, and they're just appreciative for the opportunity to play college sports and to get one step closer to their dream of becoming professional athletes, which very few of them do. So I feel like, everything is kind of designed for a reason. No, you can't take money from anyone, even though we know you need it. But nope, you can't get any help from anyone. And now that they just want to go and make money off of their own name, image, and likeness, there seems to just be such a big problem with that. And that's what really ticks me off.
Well, the other part of it is the big fight in the SEC. Let's face it. Texas A&M has caused a major problem for Alabama. Guess what? You've seen the gas prices, the oil prices across America. They've gone up and up and up. We're going through that period now where they've slipped down a little bit, but let's not fool ourselves. Texas has the oil. They've got the gas. So they've got many of those corporations that are on their turf in the state of Texas, and that's why Texas A&M has caused a major problem for Alabama, because Alabama can't compete with Texas A&M and the state of Texas, and so the University of Texas. And so let's look at the states where the generation of revenue and where the most corporations are. There are a lot of corporations here in Minnesota, uh, also, and so it's those types of states that have the most corporations that have athletic programs that have alumni that are passionate about those universities. They want their universities to be able to compete. And so now those presidents of those corporations are having to dig deep now to support the NIL program. And that's one of the big reasons why Alabama and Texas A&M have come at odds, particularly over the last year.
Oh, see, that's a little nugget. Now, I have to admit, my family is from Alabama. I have a cousin that's a professor there, so we roll tide deep in the Anderson family, and that's just how it is. And I can't apologize for that. We roll tide deep, but it's so interesting to hear, the background, because as fans, we're just excited for Saturday, right?
Yeah,
Football, college football, we're ready, college game day, first thing in the morning. But knowing and understanding kind of the background of how things are working, whether they're in the same conference or outside of the conference, the migration from one conference to another conference because the money is better over there. Because to me, it doesn't matter if the players can make money off of their own name, image, and likeness. Where the money is really, really coming from is from these television contracts, TV contracts that they're making. So their money's not going to drop off. Y'all don't worry about other sports programs because they'll still get paid.
that's the truth. And that's why these conferences, in some cases, are losing some of their programs, UCLA, USC, because they want to be able to get themselves in a position where they say, hey, the Big Ten's got that incredible Big Ten network, and they're guaranteeing each school, before they play a game, they're getting a check for $40 million. Okay, and so that's for their programs, and so if they can get their schools into a conference that annually gets at least one or two schools into the top 10. Next thing you know, you're knocking at the door playing for a national championship, and then that brings in a whole another bucket of revenue for those programs. So, as you said earlier, it's still about the money.
Yeah, and I mean, this is America. Is it ever not going to be about the money? That's just really kind of how it is here, which is why, one of the things that I advocate, I have a cousin who's, in Chicago right now playing for a D2 college, and we must say that D2 colleges are not they do not have to conform to NIL rules. This is strictly a Division 1 thing. So if you're at a D2 college, I don't think you have the same opportunity to make money with the NIL rules. But it would be nice, as a lot of our brothers and sisters are going to these big colleges, if we could, start focusing some of our attention to our historical Black colleges and universities. That's really what I'd like to see, because these big universities and programs that are making money on the backs of amateurs, who all of them, most of them look like you and me. I think we need to start rethinking how we're doing things. Switch your perspective and groom your kids to go to a Black college.
Well, you mentioned, the stroll that you talked about with some of the athletes and celebrities that are featured on my website. Deion Sanders is on there, and Deion has been a longtime friend, and obviously what he's doing at Jackson State is just remarkable. For him to leave the NFL Network and to go in and take on the challenge of coaching in the SWAC, and to take on a program and win like he has been winning, and then bringing the attention to the SWAC and to Jackson State, and the fact that he can compete and go after athletes that now take pride in staying at home and playing for a guy who's a Hall of Fame athlete,
Yep.
who's a coach who understands the business and has the integrity and can be trusted. And so I think that is a really good thing, and that's why I admire the great Deion Sanders, because he was represented by an agent, Eugene Parker, who died several years ago, and he's a gentleman that really impressed me with his ability to go out and negotiate contracts, but also take the interest of the athlete first. And then that's why I hired him to represent my son Larry. And what a remarkable job Eugene Parker did, not only for Dion, not only for Emmett Smith, and I could go on and on and on and on. But boy, what a great job he did in representing my son Larry for 17 years.
Absolutely. And we need more people out there advocating and making sure that, our best interests are at heart. And Deion Sanders, I tell you, it was, being a Cardinal fan, it was hard to be a Deion Sanders fan because he was always on the other team that I did not want to beat us. But I mean, how can you not like Showtime? But one of the bigger names to me was Doug Williams. The first Black quarterback that ever won a Super Bowl is down there at Grambling, I believe. And so I just, as much as Deion Sanders is bringing attention to HBCUs, it's just about timing, right? I think we are ready to see more of that, but it has been happening already. And I am so excited to see this push. We have Chris Paul here, who's really big on promoting HCBUs, historically Black colleges and universities. I always get those two mixed up, but I'm encouraged by the trajectory that we're going in.
Yeah, it's a new day and time, and it takes, like I told you at the beginning of my career, I tried it, and I probably would have stayed at Prairie View, but some things happened during the time that I was there early in training camp, that for a guy coming out of Chicago, I really was challenged with making a decision for my own personal safety, and that's why I chose to leave and go to the junior college route. But I certainly learned through that experience transferring. I almost went to Tulsa, but when I went on a recruiting trip there, I found out about, obviously, Black Wall Street, and what a catastrophe that was. And so I didn't want to go there, and I wound up going to Indiana State. But I learned so much through that experience. The broadcast a national championship game between Indiana State and Michigan State that I was able to take that kind of knowledge and experience and pass it on to, my sons, who went in and competed. And Larry went to the University of Pittsburgh, two-time All-American, and Marcus went to Marshall University, and they both were able to get their educations, and that's certainly at the forefront. But they also were able to compete and challenge, and to win games and to draw the respect of those universities.
Absolutely. And I just want to take a break really, really quick, because one of the great things about streaming live on Twitch is we get the conversation from the audience. And I just want to appreciate everyone who stopped by today. I always appreciate you giving time on your Saturdays when there are probably so many other things that you can do. So thank you all for coming in. And if I haven't acknowledged you personally, just know it's because I am deep in this conversation with Mr. Fitz. But thank you so much for coming in, for all of our new followers, for the wonderful get the subscriptions that have been gifted to the stream. I really, really, really appreciate your support. And you know me, that's just how it is. So I wanted to also talk um about what you're going to be doing next. I know, I see that you're still sitting in your car. Wonderful thing that you did there in the Twin Cities, but I don't want to keep you as long as I would normally keep you, because I would normally have you here for 2 hours. But I won't let you bake in your car much longer. So let's talk about what you have coming up.
Well, training camp opened yesterday for the Vikings, and when I moved here in 1978, I hitched my wagon to the National Football League. At that time, uh, after finishing school, I wanted to make certain that I was going to get into the media business as a writer with the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder, doing radio with KMOJ, and but I wanted to be able to get into a situation where I was able to develop programs that I believe could take off, and with great production and hard work and dedication over all those years, I was able to develop a program, first of all, that I was able to sell to ESPN. And then, of course, when I went to work for KFan, sort of that bridge into sort of sports radio, this concept. There was talk radio, but never sports talk radio. And so, able to do that here as well. And then that led me into obviously working out and taking that chance to work with a legend like Dennis Green, and to do his radio show for 8 years. I mean, the Vikings made the playoffs 8 out of 10 years when he was head coach. He gave my son Larry and Marcus jobs as ball boys. So the Vikings have always been at the forefront for me. They've been my vehicle through the National Football League, and I covered my first Super Bowl back in 1980 between then they were the Oakland Raiders and the Philadelphia Eagles. And so I learned then that every game is a big game. But when you cover the World Championship, the Super Bowl, if you can take that mentality into producing a sportscast, doing a radio show, that type of thing, if you can come up with that kind of energy and excitement, that's what I've tried to bring to what I've done for all these years. And so right now we're jumping on the Vikings. They've got a new head coach, and Kevin O'Connell, who just left the Rams, who won the Super Bowl last year. And the Vikings have a talented football team. Mike Zimmer, he leaned on defense for the time that he was here, and he did some good things. But the last 2 years, the defense just was not good enough. So we'll see if the new Viking formula can turn them into a team that can finally win a championship in Minnesota. And so that's my next mission, covering the Vikings through training camp and measuring them as they get their team down from 90 to 53 players, and challenging in the NFC North with the Bears and the Lions, who should be improved. And of course, the Chicago Bears, who might have to get a new stadium here real soon. I know the mayor has let them know that if you move your team to Arlington, Illinois, you won't be the Chicago Bears. But trying to get a dome stadium on top of Soldiers Field is going to be quite the challenge.
Yeah, but I don't know if we could have football without the Chicago Bears. It definitely can't be the Arlington Bears, and the Illinois Bears doesn't really sound very catchy either. I don't know what that's all about.
Yeah. Well, she let them know that hey, if you take that team from Soldiers Field to Arlington, and they've already bought the land, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out because the NFL has already supplied the motivation. If you can get your state, your city, to get behind you financially in the building of a new stadium, we will get you a Super Bowl within 2 years. And so that's where the Chicago Bears are. Imagine that a Super Bowl in Chicago.
Better be a dome. It better be a dome, because I will be sitting on the couch in my fuzzy socks, looking at everybody in the crowd, saying, "What are you thinking? It's cold there." And that's awesome. I wanted to take another minute just to encourage everyone to follow Mr. Fitz. He's not really on social media a lot, I will tell you that. But he is on Twitter, Fitzbeat Senior, and go to his website, larry-fitzgerald.com. You will be able to listen to old podcasts. He's still contributing to KMOJ 89.9, the People Station, which is where we met many years ago. I don't know if you do you remember meeting me all those years ago?
Absolutely, and I'm real proud of meeting the many individuals who have been able to go through KMOJ. Technically, I don't work for them. I run the National Programming Network, and so when I got fired by KFAN many years ago, and I won that lawsuit, and they discriminated against me, and that's behind me now because it led to me uh, forming the National Programming Network, which bridged me to Dennis Green, and the rest of the story. Dennis gave Larry a job as a ball boy. Then, when he
Yes.
was fired as coach of the Vikings, he became coach of the Cardinals, and he drafted Larry in the first round. With the highest
Yes.
till Kyler Murray 3 years ago. So, I put things in God's hands. I always have. I've always had the faith and belief that if I ask God for something, that's it. You ask for it, and then the rest will take its place if you're willing to roll up your sleeves and work hard. And I've been able to do that. The Twins are still in it. They lead their division by a game, I believe, over Cleveland. The trade deadline is coming up on August 7th, or 2nd, rather. That's Tuesday. So they got to make a decision how they're going to try and maneuver to get some help to get them across the finish line in terms of not only winning the division, but doing something they haven't done in a long time, and that's win in the playoffs. And right now, the Yankees and Houston, those are teams that in the American League look like they're better. And so the Twins have got to find a way between now and the playoffs to not only win the division but be competitive once they get in the playoffs.
Absolutely. And if you guys are listening right now, whether you're here on Twitch or on Twitter or on YouTube, I apologize for those of you guys who are on YouTube and you're chatting amongst each other. I hope that you're having a great conversation. Hopefully by the time I'm back here next week, I will have a way for everyone to show up in the same chat so we can all be part of the same conversation. But this man right here knows sports. And I know that's probably somebody else's tagline, but this man knows sports, whether it's high school, collegiate, professional. That's why I knew this conversation would be a good one with you. But just to let you know, Mr. Fitz, in a month, September, I've got Freddie Coleman coming on. The
Wow.
title of that show is Professional Servitude. And that's what we're going to be digging in with him. So we're going to, we're talking about collegiate sports now, which so much money is attached to the two biggest sports that are predominantly Black. And we've seen the players change throughout the decades, but the coaches have not. We're not seeing equality in the coaching staffs. We're not seeing equality anywhere else except for on the field. And I think that we've learned why that is now.
That's a that's an excellent opportunity. You know, Mr. Coleman's a tremendous professional. I've been on his show many times over the years. Well, he works so hard and he's so dedicated and passionate about what he does, and it's invigorating when you're around people that understand how this business works, and he's been able to take advantage of the great forum that he has on ESPN.
Absolutely. So I'm ready to just dig into like the last part of my show. We've had really deep conversations. I feel like we could talk probably another hour, but I want to get you out of your baking car. So I have like some parting questions that I like to ask my guests. But before I do that, do you mind if I just really quick tell people what we're in for next week?
Absolutely.
All right. So next week, I just want you to know that we have Terry Matthews here. If you're a Food Network fan like I am, you will recognize him as Barbecue Daddy. He's been on so many shows. He is the Barbecue Daddy. He's right here, special events and catering. He's an authentic and accomplished chef. Chef Terry has been over the grill and in kitchens since 1997. Again, he's been a featured guest on multiple television networks and media outlets, along with several appearances on the Food Network, working alongside Chef Bobby Flay and the winner of the Food Network's #1 chef competition show, Cutthroat Kitchen and Camp Cutthroat. With more than 24 years of experience, Chef Terry Matthews is still in love with the culinary arts and ready to show off his skills in your kitchen or your event. But he's here in Arizona. So if you're not here, you won't be able to get any benefits of what he has to offer anyway. But next week, we're taking him out of his comfort zone and we're going to talk about his experiences on his way up to being where he is, his experience with inequality and racism, because no one, absolutely no one, is if you're black in this country, you're going to experience it. So I'm really looking forward to having that conversation with him in an industry that we don't really talk about very much. So hopefully y'all will be back next week for that one. All right, Mr. Fitzgerald, hopefully this will not seem like a test to you, but these are some hard questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So the first thing is, what would you be doing if you weren't in broadcasting? What is another love that you have in your life?
Well, you know, my growing up in Chicago, I don't know if you knew this. My mom and dad were in the grocery store business. I grew up in a middle class environment. They moved to Chicago from Natchez, Mississippi, and so right off the bat, from the time I can remember, we were working in the grocery store. And so at one time we had three on the west and south sides of Chicago, and then as years went by, my mom and dad got into the barbecue business and were very successful. Did the Taste of Chicago annually and catering and that type of thing, and just did the best ribs in Chicago on 63rd and Ashland, and then 1800 in Indiana, downtown Chicago. And so I probably would be in the barbecue business. I actually tried to branch it to Minnesota many years ago when Joey Browner was playing for the Vikings. I developed a relationship with him, and he wanted to partner with me in putting one here. But my parents didn't, you know, for some reason they didn't want to do it. So that was for me. Okay, mom, I'm out. I'm going to do the journalism deal, and I've been doing that ever since. So I probably would be in the barbecue business because I'm tied now with a major sponsor, Dickey's Barbecue. They're out of Texas. They're huge down there in San Antonio and various parts of that state, and they've got several locations here in Minnesota, and they've really been good to me. And so I probably would be in the barbecue business. I know a lot about barbecue.
Man, I never got an invitation for like 4th of July. I would love to be in the room to be able to taste your barbecue. That's very interesting. I love the answers that I get when I ask that when I ask that question. So you tune in next week when we have Barbecue Daddy, because you're probably going to have a lot of similar experiences, not just, because of barbecue, but because of other things.
Yeah.
All right. So, next question, which is kind of maybe not attached to that first question, but name one thing that you would do if money was not an option. If you could do anything, you didn't have to worry about how much it was going to cost. What's the one thing you would do?
I'd probably be in coaching. Many people have asked me, why aren't you coaching and why aren't you this and that? Because they either see me on television, listen to me on the radio, or read something that I've written, and they just think that I would be a benefit as a coach. And you know what? When I was growing up in my formative years in Chicago, I actually was a coach, coaching a little league team while I was, trying to compete and understand the business and that type of thing. But uh, I eventually realized that I thought my strong suit was, to be a journalist, and that's why I got out of the coaching.
Well, we definitely appreciate your presence in journalism. I feel like we don't have enough Black journalists that we can trust, that the information that you give is correct and not always just your opinion. And again, if you're not following him on Twitter, because that's really the only place you're going to find him, you will be just overjoyed by some of the tweets that he makes and the conversations that he has. And I always think it's funny how much people comment on like your no spaces after your periods. Do you ever get tired of that?
Well, you know what? I try to remind people that this is a thought for me. I'm just putting out a thought. Uh, I'm I'm responding to something, and I'm just having fun with it. But then you got to remind them when they want to challenge you on this and challenge you on that. That this is what I do. This is what I do for a living. This is something that I take uh, a lot of pride in. You may not agree with my opinion, and I have expanded it. I don't just deal with sports. I deal with some things in politics because that's just where we are in America today. There's some things that happen that have a great effect on sports that politics find a way of getting into, and we're looking at that now with Brittany Griner. I mean, here she is, having been held captive since February 17th. She made a decision to do something with cannabis coming out of Russia, and from that point, they have accused her of trying to smuggle drugs, and so she has been battling, and and now it's come down to a political situation where the United States is offering, a captive Russian prisoner who's been convicted. Okay, Brittany has been convicted of anything. She's still going through the process, but they're willing to go and do a 2-for-1 trade. So that's politics, and so it's getting into sports because who's Brittany Griner? She's a two-time world champion, and an all-star in the WNBA, and certainly everybody's talking about you know why isn't the United States doing more, to try to get her out of there and that type of thing. And it's just been very interesting to watch this process.
And it's so interesting because I feel like the story of Brittany Griner right now is so relevant in the inequality conversation. Because had she been a man, had she even been a white, had she been Diana Taurasi or Sue Bird, I don't know that we'd even have this conversation. And what really pissed me off, and of course you probably know, is that the fact that it took us 100+ days for anyone to even start tweeting about it. Like people didn't even want to show encouragement in Twitter for what she was going through. And then by the time they started, she had already been in there for 3 months. That really ticked me off, but that's a whole nother conversation. We won't get too deep into that. So let's get to my next question. There are only three more. Let's see if we can get this done right now. What are you most grateful for right now?
Well, I'm grateful for my health. First of all, having come through COVID like everybody else in America, and I've been quite fortunate through my life to I haven't had to have surgery, for an ankle or knee or back or shoulder or anything like that. And when you play a violent game like football, as I did, wrestled during my career in high school and that type of thing, you come into certain situations where, boy, I tell you, you realize the pain and the suffering that you go through. And I've had some injuries, but fortunately, I have had no surgeries, and so I'm definitely blessed to have had the fortune of health.
Yeah. I and again, health a whole nother conversation when it comes to black folks and inequality that we're gonna have on another show. But it's definitely important to pay attention to your body. God only gives us this one. So pay attention to what's happening in your bodies and be grateful for everything that works instead of thinking about what doesn't work, right? All
Right.
right. So, second to last question. If this was your last day on earth, how would
Ooh,
you be living it?
to the fullest. But that's my approach every day. Sometimes I get teased when I don't make a big deal about a birthday or even a celebration of an anniversary or things like that. I'm just happy about the fact that God gave me the ability and another day to breathe and to live and to explore and to grow. And that's something that I've always never taken for granted because we're all in His hands. And when He decides that it's time to go, as we've seen, and I've lost so many friends and family over the years, and my mom and my dad, they're gone. My one of my brothers, Michael, they're gone, and so you don't ever forget those experiences and the times that we had with them, and you realize that we're blessed to be where we are, living and breathing, because once God says you're up, you're up.
Do you remember Big Ant used to be on KMOJ?
Absolutely.
That's how he cut ended every show. Live every day as if it were your last, and one day you'll be right.
Wow, boy, isn't that the truth?
I'm telling you, I've taken that with me for so many years, and I feel like I said it word for word because I heard it so many times. Big Ant was one of my favorites, of course, on KMOJ, and I have him coming on the show, by the way. Conversation with friends. You just make sure you keep up with us, all right,
I'll
Mr.
do that.
Fitzgerald,
I'll
because I got some good folks coming on here.
do
All
that.
right, last question. We're going to turn it away from you now, okay?
Okay.
Do you believe that America will ever reach its full potential?
Wow. Whew. Well, I believe in God, and so I put everything in God's hands. And I think that's why, those that disagree with me, argue with me, question me after a radio show or on Twitter, I'm not on Facebook or any of the other forums, but people want to take me on and things like that. But I believe that we, me, you, have the right to be in America and looked at in America and succeed in America just like anybody else. And so I bring up instances and historical notes where I'm proving to you that, hey, America has made mistakes. Just like right now, we're in the middle of this. The PGA Tour was here last week with the 3M Open, and Tony Finau won. And one of my big discussions with him was about the Live Saudi series. And some people can turn their back on the fact that what happened on September 11th. Do you believe the Saudis had anything to do with it? Is that blood money that they're offering to all these PGA Tour players? And here they are now tied in with Donald Trump right there in the shadow of where those towers went down in New Jersey. I'm hoping and praying that America will reach its full potential But that's only going to happen if America deals with the truth. And the truth is looking at themselves and how this country was built and whose backs it was built on.
Yeah, I sometimes I wonder if we will ever get to the point where it can just be recognized, because right now we are trying to erase slavery. We're trying to erase the tragedy that's happened to so many people in this country. And I say a lot, I'm tired of us clutching our pearls by what we're seeing today, because this is America. This It was founded on crap and built by us. They came in, wiped out a whole race of people, kicked the Mexicans out of this country, by saying that they discovered it in the name of Christianity. This is ours now, and forget about the rest of you guys. And then enslaved another whole group of people. When this country was founded, it was never founded on equality. And so until we get to that point, and I hope that we do, because in this space, that's what we hope for. So, man, I'm so happy that you were able to come. I appreciate you so much, Mr. Fitz. If I don't tell you enough, I just want you to know that I really, really, really appreciate you. Thank you for coming on. Do you have anything that you want to leave the audience with? We haven't had a lot of communication with them, but they've been busy in the chat, let me tell you. Anything you want to leave people in our audience with today?
Well, just believe and stay after it, whether it's a team, whether it's a family, whether it's a child, wherever you may be. I look at, a lot of people come to me with questions on how do I get my child through this and how do you do that? And I'm taking on challenges here in Minneapolis because I'm looking at the park system, the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board. They're fighting, as I mentioned, why I played in this golf tournament today. The bronze, the 80th bronze. This is the first golf course in America where a black man got to play golf. Started in 1939. And so when you carry on those types of traditions, you remind people that you have to recognize history, particularly your history, and you have to fight for it because nobody's going to give it to you. And if you don't support it, it'll just go down a drain. And so when you look at the park system and how did my sons come up through this park system playing pee wee football? Right now, the park system in Minneapolis, they only got 4 parks where there are football programs for young people to play. And so we're getting to a point where soccer now in Minneapolis has sort of become the vehicle for athletes to grow and play in the parks. And I'm going to challenge the Park and Recreation Board. Hey, don't close the door because you're afraid of an injury and that type of thing for your child. And I think part of that is looking what the NFL is getting into the flag football promotions and things of that nature. You can't give up on allowing young people the ability to dream. Sometimes it's a chance, but if you're okay with the coaching and trust that the coaches know what they're doing on that level, then you got to give your children a chance to play something so they can make a decision for themselves eventually if they're going to use football, basketball, soccer, baseball, whatever the case may be, hockey. This is the state of hockey as their vehicle to try and go and get an education.
Man, I didn't realize because, my son grew up playing football in the parks. My daughter grew up playing basketball in the parks. After actually they both did, like Farview Park was our home.
Yeah.
And so it's very disappointing to hear um that those kind of changes are happening out there. But I am encouraged that you're out there making sure that they remain accountable to the community. So thank you so much. And again, you guys follow Fitzbeat Senior on Twitter. Always a great conversation with him. Larry-Fitzgerald.com. Please go and spend some time on his website. There's so much there that you're gonna learn about him and sports. And again, Mr. Fitz, thank you so much. I'm gonna let you go. And then I'm going to close out with everyone else real quick. All right. So thank you again for being here. Appreciate you.
It's a blessing. I really enjoyed it, and continued success to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye
All
bye.
right. Bye. All right. So just real quick, I got maybe 5 minutes for you guys. Just to let you know. Um, let's see. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation. Again, I feel like all of this came to my mind during COVID. That it didn't seem right that colleges and universities were so willing to put our kids in harm's way in the height of COVID for basketball and football programs to continue because they needed the money. But understand that the reason why they needed the money is not just for the millions of dollars that they pay coaches, but those two programs, basketball, football, whether it be women's basketball, men's basketball, softball, baseball, those top earning sports is what supports the rest of the sports program. So I understood why they did it, but I didn't appreciate the fact that Black athletes still were not at least given some credit for the contributions that they have given to that whole collegiate sports experience for everybody, whether you're hockey or lacrosse or a rowing team. Chances are you're benefiting from the fact that basketball and football at your college is what's paying for your scholarship. So, again, right here on Inequality, we are trying to take the blinders off from people, take the blinders off so we can see one another and understand one another's experiences at every level. And if you have a child that's playing sports right now, have that conversation with them, because I'm sure they're still experiencing racism on campus, no matter how well they're playing football or no matter how many championships they bring to your basketball team, they are still experiencing inequality and racism in their journey. So make sure you're having these conversations. And if you've got a kid right now who's looking at TV and they know that's what they want, then make sure you're having the conversation with them too. I'm hoping that things are going to change when it comes to collegiate sports. I am hoping, but this being America and money being the bottom line, I don't know how quickly that's really going to happen. So I'm just on here telling you, have the conversation with your kids, and let's bring in some Black colleges and universities into this conversation so that they are making the money that these other colleges are making, because really that's what it's all about, being equal. All right. So let me just really quick. I talked about what we're doing next week. I really just wanted to let you know kind of what's coming up over the next few weeks. And of course, I'm not finding it. I know it's in here. Maybe not. All right. We'll do that next time. I think I'm going to do a little pop-up on Wednesday just to talk about the August shows, because we have some really good stuff coming. I want to say thank you again to everyone that stopped by today. I thought I was going to give you a little bit more time than I did, but I just want to just appreciate you for coming. If I didn't get a chance to welcome you, if I didn't get a chance to respond to your chats when you spoke directly to me, I apologize. But I thank you. I thank you for all of the new chatters, all of the new followers, to the givers and supporters of this program. I appreciate you so much. And I look forward to seeing you next week, because we're going to have another difficult conversation about race with Terry Matthews, otherwise known as Barbecue Daddy. All right, so I'm going to let you go. Let's see, where are we going to raid out to? Sweet Jamaica, do you mind putting that raid message in there? And yes, Kelly Vision, of course, this is up for replay. If you don't find it on Twitch, it's also on YouTube. And you can watch them, send people to either one, Twitch or YouTube. Again, I'm going to try and figure out how to connect them all, because I want us to all have a good conversation. I see Mel Holiday was on there. Someone named Drunk. I don't know who that is. It might be a good thing that they're not able to join in, because I don't know how to even get those people out of here if I don't want them. So raid. Thank you for that raid message. Let's see who we're going to raid out to here. Give me a quick minute. Why is it that whenever you don't want pop-ups on here, that's what you're going to get? All right. So let's see who we're gonna. Ooh, DJ Rich is on. Immaculate. I am Robin C. Let's go ahead to DJ Rich NYC. Please make sure that you copy that raid message. This is a dope streamer. When I first came on to Twitch, that's what I was here for. I was here for music. I love the music. It just gave peace. Music just brings us all together. So please, 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 hang in there and listen to DJ Rich Nice, because he is nice. He is very nice. Again, thank you, thank you, thank you so much for coming. And I appreciate y'all. I appreciate y'all. And we will see you next week. I think I'm getting ready to do it right now. You ready? All right. I think we're gone. We are gone. And for those of you in YouTube, thank you, thank you, thank you for coming. I'm going to end this broadcast here too. I appreciate you. I appreciate you.